Greetings one and all, and welcome to another episode of Late Night Ponderings, my series of mini editorials that covers a wide range of subjects. Today's subject, a public defense of Tidus's character arc, with a little bit of Yuna sprinkled in. Red Angel hindsight note. For those of you wondering if Tidus even needs defending at this point, because surely we've evolved beyond making fun of him, a new generation of gamers is getting into the Final Fantasy X saga, and I wanted to provide some clarity, or opinions, depending on how you look at my videos. By the way, comment down below on what your opinion of Tidus's character arc is, and let me know if you think I should tackle Yuna's in a future video. Anyways, on to the actual mini editorial. I've always wondered why the collective memory of gamers everywhere remembered the awkward laugh scene in Final Fantasy X as high-key cringe that allegedly came out of nowhere. If you've been paying attention to the story of Final Fantasy X, up until this point, Tidus's characterization made perfect sense for this scene, especially if you think about how he was impacted by the individual disasters he witnessed prior to this. Yet, I think it'd be better if we circled back to the beginning with this one, flashbacks included. Tidus is a jock, a cocky celebrity who grew up in a life of privilege. His father was a massive star who was neglectful and at times downright emotionally abusive to him growing up. This isn't me inferring upon something that isn't there. These are scenes where Jecht openly berates his son in flashbacks, leaving him crying in response.
Gonna cry again? Cry, cry. That's the only thing you're good for.
I hate you. I hate you!
I hate you!
He's partially watched over by Auron after his dad disappears, a father-like figure to Tidus, and then he's thrown into the world of Spira after watching Xanarkid get attacked by Sin. The kid doesn't know what's going on, and after he meets this pretty girl, Yuna, he agrees to be her guardian, whatever that means to him, to try to get back home and to the world he once knew. Yet, as a person, this is a start of a character arc, a positive one, that leads to him changing and growing as a person. However, said character arc starts with a lie, like many do. According to Koei, in order for your character to evolve in a positive way, he has to start off with something lacking in his life, some reason that makes change necessary. He is incomplete in some way, but not because he's lacking in something external. A person in a prison camp can be entirely whole and balanced on the inside, while someone floating in a Malibu mansion's swimming pool might be a miserable son of a gun. This right here is the case for Tidus. He wasn't lacking in anything when he was back at Xanarkid, but to say that his life was complete wouldn't be at all correct. He thinks it's perfect, but it's lacking something important. Though the first half of his journey, he learns about others' suffering and how Yuna, the girl he's obviously crushing on and trying to cheer up, is this amazing savior. And all he wants to do is to help her deal with her own trauma and responsibility like he has. He witnessed the massacre of the village of Kilika alongside Yuna and watched her having to send off souls to the far plane. Then, after a few more battles and a run-in with Seymour, the I'm the obvious villain Guado, it starts to be more and more obvious that their journey almost mirrors one another in a way. And with this connection, Tidus realizes something very important. He has someone he can finally confide in. Then the laugh scene happens. It was the start of the evolution of his character, him realizing he was needed by someone else, as more than a blitzball player, more than a guardian. He was needed by Yuna. He's someone who cared about Yuna, no matter who she was. As goofy as the scene came off, it was catharsis for two people who needed to laugh and release the emotions bottled up inside them. While Tidus keeps his blonde himbo attitude throughout the entire game, it's in this moment that we see more depth to him than initially thought.
Thank you.
Huh?
I want my journey to be full of laughter.
Okay.
Then there's Yuna, who at first came off as a meek wallflower who only wanted what's best for her world, a stereotypical JRPG female protagonist. But, in fact, she's filled with stress and anxiety about this mission and fulfilling the same role as her father had all those years ago. She's very much in need of some stress relief. We saw the connection they had to each other forming back on Besaid Island. Awkward teen dialogue aside, since the beginning of the game, the bonds between Tidus and Yuna have been slowly forming. Throughout the plot, their stories have been running parallel to one another. Both of them have a goal in mind at the beginning. Yuna is to save the world from sin, just as her father had, and Tidus is to escape Spira and to go back to his world. Both of these are lies that set them off upon their journeys in the first place. If you compare about how Tidus reacts at different points in the game after the attacks by Sin, you'll notice he gets gradually more frustrated at the fact that what the group is doing is seemingly not helping. Good examples of this being the events at the Maihen High Road and the Albed home, just to name a few.
You want to protect them, I know. But Guardians are there for that. If Guardians do their job well, summoners will be safe, right? Right?
It's quiet. Kimahri goes now.
Tidus assumes that once they defeat Sin, that it'll be all over, and that he'll have his happy ever after with the entire group, returning to his home. Only he's not privy to the fact that in order to kill Sin, they must sacrifice a summoner. When he finds out, though, in his frustration, he goes to Riku, and they both try to form a plan on how to save Yuna from such a fate. Lucky for them, and unlucky for poor Yuna, her worldview gets shattered as well, and after certain encounters with Seymour, I'm dead now but no not really, just try to find and ghost bust me Guado, that the lie that Yuna realizes she's been told her entire life is that her religion and what she's been doing to help people have been making things worse. In reality, all she's doing is prolonging a potential apocalyptic scenario and subjecting the people, like the Albed, so they can keep the corrupt system of government going for as long as humanely possible. Most of this revelation being partially the cause of Tidus's antics, and dragging her along in his journey of self-discovering, and inevitably leading her to one of her own. But that's what couples do, right? They grow and accidentally show them their entire worldview is a lie. You know, growing up is fun, everyone! But in all seriousness, Yuna thought what she was doing was making a difference, when in reality, that's not true at all. Yuna's sacrifice would have forced her to turn one of her close friends into an Aeon, and after defeating Sin, they will in fact become Sin with the cycle continuing. And in this scenario, that was likely going to be the fate of Tidus. Yuna decided to break the cycle and defeat Sin without sacrificing those she loves. In a direct parallel to this late-game revelation of Yuna's, Tidus realizes that he is in fact a memory of the fate. A memory ghost, a force ghost, if you will, that has physical body and needs. What a memory of fate is those that died from Sin and lived in Xanarkid long before, like him. He knows that by continuing to help Yuna with this quest, this may result in him fading away, but he's undeterred by this. If this was the Tidus from early on in the story, from when he thought he had it all, this entire scenario would have played out significantly differently. I wouldn't have been surprised if he lived like an unsent and fled to some distant part of Spira if this was in early game. Tidus, since back then, didn't have anything to lose, or anyone to care about outside of himself. At this point, he's seen the suffering of others. He's watched what Yuna had to go through, the people she had to fight, how people who used to revere her turned against her in the mere matter of moments, when she told them the truth of what was going on in the world. Tidus isn't the sort of guy to stand by and let that happen. He might be a bit of an egotistical jock, but his overtly jerkish moments have been toned down by this point in the game. He's already found out that his reason for continuing to journey with this group is no longer the same reason that he started with. He wants to ensure that Yuna's world doesn't suffer the same fate that his did. Throughout the journey, we see that he's grown to care about this world and the inhabitants.
I won't let you die. I'll find a way somehow.
And eventually, when the time comes for him to say his goodbye to his very being, his existence, to his consciousness at the very end of the game, he does so with a smile on his face. This is after working out his daddy issues by killing his dad, of course, but you know, still.
I'm going to kill you, and then kill you again.
It's Tidus's story, and while his story very much steered the way that Yuna's will go, something I'll get to in a later video, I hope, his story ended with him becoming a better person. Even if he did realize that he was nothing more than a manifestation of an existentialism nightmare. Tidus was annoying, I'll grant you, but by the time he ended his journey, he was no longer lacking in anything in his life. He was a man who died with his arms wide open, diving into the abyss with wanton abandon, much like he dove into the water at the beginning of the game. If you can't see that he's grown by this point, then I think we've played two different games. I'm Red Angel, and I'll see you next time.